Next to join us is Millie Efraim. Millie is a multimedia creator and founder of Persian Girl Podcast. She is committed to preserving the history of the Jewish people of Iran. Thank you so much for being here today with us, Millie.
Thank you for having me. Such an honor to be here with one of my closest friends, who you are and who I started Persian Girl Podcast with. For anyone who might not know, I'm a Persian Jew. I come from a family who has, you know, 2,500 years of history in Iran, Persia, and I I never thought that my Persian or Jewish identity should be separate. You kind of hear it in the title of Persian Girl Podcast that I emit Jewishness, because for me it was something that was just always embedded in my Persian identity. And similar to what everyone else has been saying, yeah, we forget this 3,000-year allyship between Persians and Jews, and we forget that it is the oldest diaspora, and the Jews were in Iran. I mean, it was the Jews and the Zoroastrians. So, and another thing I'd like to point out these days is that the halfway point of Jewish presence in Iran is the Islamic conquests. So with all of that being said, my family's history left a great imprint on me from a young age. I always felt like called to use my voice in one way or another. Before the podcast, I was designing jewelry. I created a very eccentric, provocative chainwear line called Bakire, which means virgin in Farsi, and it was a commentary on the sexual oppression in Iran, not just sexual, I mean, women's oppression in Iran, but the designs were very sexual for, trying to offend the mullahs and whatnot, is one of my life goals. But and with the podcast, we've been sharing stories not just of Jews, and it's gone beyond that. And I think it's really important to leave the echo chamber. Like, being part of this discussion is important to me because to create that allyship, again, of course, there are people in Iran who support Israel, and I know them personally. Unfortunately, it's the ones, Iranians in the West, who aren't as supportive, but the ones who have really experienced the regime firsthand are supportive. But I'm interested in, having these conversations outside of Jews and whoever's considering themselves a Zionist openly. And furthermore, the connection between Iran and Israel, again, has been very clear to me, the common enemy. And another hope of mine, again, and I don't have the power for this, I'm someone who's interested in cultural commentary and historic preservation of the Persian Jews, but there needs to, I wish there would be more organization. I mean, yeah, with the death of Raisi, now we have the elections coming up, and what is going to change? These are things that give me so much anxiety. And unfortunately, it's sad to say that Mahsa Amini's death was like a pivotal moment in my life and many others that kind of excited me. And it felt like, okay, we have this momentum, let's get going. And I still feel the same way. And things obviously have changed course a lot since October 7th. And not to be negative, but there's been a lot of loss for me from the Iranians that I do know who weren't very supportive. So I'm trying to build that unity again and have these conversations. And regime change in Iran.